is Joseph who carries the blessing called the Bechorah, the double portion blessing, which is now going to be divided between his two sons, so that Joseph has two tribes among the tribes of Israel. Hi, this is Barry Phillips with day number 3 of Torah portion Ve'eki. We're still in chapter number 48 and still beginning to break down the prophetic significances of the things that are stated here. And so we find then in verse number 5, and now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Mitzrayim before I came to you in Mitzrayim, are mine. As Reuben and Shimon, they are mine. Your offspring, whom you shall bring forth after them, are yours, and let them be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. Wow. Grandfather, Yaakov, has just adopted 2 more sons, the sons of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. He says, they are now mine. Literally is saying they will be counted among the tribes of Israel, those who are going to carry on the lineage of the Bechorah, that blessing that says that you are the lineage that brings forth the seed, the promised seed from Bereshit or Genesis chapter 3, and you are to be the ones who will inherit the covenant land. Interesting. Now, Yaakov, as he begins to speak, he gives some details about the death of Rachel, his primary bride, and he starts giving geographical locations. Is this because Joseph doesn't know, or is he hinting at something? Again, let's recognize that he is in the realm of the prophetic anointing. So as he begins to describe what's going on here, he mentions the name of Padan, which means fields. For he says, when I came from Padan, the fields, Rachel died beside me in the land of Canaan on the way, where there was but a little distance to go to Ephrath. The word Ephrath means ash heap, a fruitless place. What's interesting is Ephrath is also rooted in the word parah, which means fruitful. So the fruitful place has become a fruitless place. Then he mentions that I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem, the house of bread. Coincidence? I don't think so. He is announcing that there is a people who are called to fruit bearing, and they will be fruitless, living in an ash heap. Can we say it this way? That there will be a people, fields of people, fields being the harvest. Look out into the harvest and see that it's ripe. Those that are in the fields, they are fruitless. They're not bearing the fruit that they have a root to bear. Actually, they are at a place of an ash heap. Fallen structures, rubble. That which was has now been destroyed. But their root cries for fruit bearing, and to their root they will return. When we come home to our Hebraic root, there is fruit bearing there. We have left fruitless ash heap structures. We have left the fields where there was no fruit bearing available. And we've returned to our root, parah, that we might learn to become fruitful again. It's time for you and I to come out of barren fields that bear no fruit and come to the house of bread, where there is enough for everyone. So Yaakov has just adopted these 2 sons. And then he asked them to be brought to him. And in verse 8, he asked the question. It says, Israel, not Yaakov, but Israel saw Joseph's sons and said, whose are these? Now, does he not know the 2 boys that he's just adopted? But let's be reminded. And a similar episode earlier on in his own life, he deceived his own father, impersonating his brother Esau. So let us have a formal declaration. Let us not make the mistake of bestowing a favorable blessing and anointing over onto someone to whom it does not belong. When Joseph presented his sons, he took Manasseh, the eldest, and put him over on his father's right-hand side, Ephraim the younger on his left. This was intentional. The eldest son should receive the favorable blessing. Yaakov, Israel in this instance, crosses his hands and lays the right hand of favor on the younger son, the left hand on Manasseh. Now, for those that have been here in Hebraic roots for any length of time, you know the story, you know the significance of it. But in this audience, there are many that have not been exposed or have any understanding of the significance of what's being said. For your sake, I want to explain this to you. When he did this, when he put his hands crosswise, I've heard it preached before, that this is the significance is that he's made a cross. It's more than a cross. It's actually, as he is sitting there, an X. The letter X, as we know it in the English alphabet, in the Hebrew alphabet, it is the sign of the letter Tav, or the old ancient paleo sign of the letter Tav. Tav just so happens to represent the idea of covenant. So there is a covenant blessing that is being bestowed here. And then he says, pertaining to Ephraim, Joseph protests. He says, Father, Dad, wait a minute, you're messing up. You got your wrong hand on the wrong son. You need to straighten your hands out. And Yaakov says, I know what I'm doing. And he consciously directed his hands, verse 14 says. In verse 15, he says, the Elohim before whom my fathers and Yitzhak walked, the Elohim who has fed me all my life long to this day, the messenger who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the youths, and let my name be called upon them in the name of my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak, and let them increase to a multitude in the midst of the earth. To vayidag, let me say this again, vayidagu larav. That is, let them grow into a multitude like fish. The word dog is the Hebrew word for fish. Let them grow like schools of fish in the earth. That is, that they are to multiply exceedingly. Now, he prophesies that Manasseh would become a great nation. But he also prophesies then that Ephraim, the younger son, will become the Melo hagoyim. This is what is referred to in Romans chapter 11, verse 25 and 26. And also Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11 through 14 and verse 19. That is the word or the phrase Melo hagoyim means the fullness of the Gentiles. What does this mean? Glad you asked. What we're seeing here is a prophetic call that these two sons would become an incredibly large number or group of people, and that they would fill the earth. Ultimately, they would be among the 10 tribes that would be lost to Israel in 722 BC or BCE. Be scattered and disseminated among all the nations of the earth. But Yah knows exactly which one is which and who is who throughout all of our mixed up lineages. And he knows who is the Melo hagoyim, the fullness of the Gentiles. The kingdom waits for the fullness of the Gentiles to come in. Yah is still looking among the goyim, the nations, for those who have an ear to hear what the Ruach is saying, that they may be brought in and that the kingdom will come. We'll elaborate more on this tomorrow, and until then, shalom.